Good morning. It's Ladina Boo again. I'm a pastor in Stockton, Missouri. I want to thank everybody for joining us this morning on Trials and Triumphs. This morning, my guest is Jared Deeds. He comes to us originally from Alaska and has managed to make his way into Missouri. And he's going to go ahead and tell us his testimony and what the Lord has brought him through and how his life has changed since a drug addiction. Um, so anyway, good morning, Jared. How are you doing today?
Good morning. Thank you for having me. I'm doing wonderful.
Well, I just kind of pulled him out of the woodwork and asked him to come out here and talk to us, and he was more than willing to do so. Um, we'll let people know offhand that he did have a major accident and had some
Yes.
brain injuries. And so he's got some problems with memory once in a while. But I know everybody out there will understand that. And anyway, Jared's going to talk to us about how he got into selling drugs initially and then got after that he got into using, which happens to a lot of people who are selling, and how the love of his wife and child and everything, and some help from the Hope Homes helped him get back on his feet and start following the Lord. So why don't you go
Absolutely.
ahead and give us your tell us what you want to tell us today.
Okay, so I'd start probably back at the beginning when let's go back before I became of course, drug addict. Before I even knew anything about the Lord, I was living in Washington State, where I was pretty much been born and raised, and I had of course, been living a good, clean life, non-criminal, uh, non-drug addict. Didn't have I couldn't even tell you about a single drug or what they were made of. I knew nothing. I was completely ignorant, and I had been working for a casino and doing a pretty good job of actually starting to build a respectable life. Finances had the money, things were getting put together, and I ended up, without realizing what I was doing, started selling drugs. Of course, methamphetamines or heroin, whatever you needed. I was trying to get you what you needed so that I could, of course, feed my addiction at the time, which I didn't realize what it was, which was money.
Mm-hmm.
And I was addicted to the income that I was starting to bring in.
It's good money in dealing drugs.
Yeah,
You
including working at a casino and other things. And I was going to school full time. And the problem with that is it starts to build such actually a decent income. You start seeing $5,000-$10,000 a week potentially is what was coming in.
mm-hmm.
And eventually that started to feed a darker side, but not being aware that the darker side was there, completely ignorant of all these things, I soon started finding myself slowly slipping down from my I would not I would normally not do something, and then I found myself all of a sudden, well, sure, I could
Yeah,
rationalize
you're
doing
on
this.
that ladder of life, and all of a sudden you find yourself taking a few steps down.
Yeah, I kept stepping down, 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 and before I actually knew it, I was doing the wrong thing. At casinos, gambling all night. Got into the methamphetamines that I was supposed to be selling. Um, just doing the wrong things, hanging out with women that I shouldn't be messing with, doing things with them. Just it was a horrible life because you just don't see what the enemy is doing when you're not aware.
Mm-hmm.
And so the worst thing that I saw in my life at that time is just not having proper knowledge, having no knowledge about you know good over evil, no knowledge of God, no knowledge of Scripture. More importantly, nothing to solidify your life, nothing to ground you
Mm-hmm.
in a like a Christian environment, like a God Jesus environment, when you don't feed the right thing, you're going to feed the wrong thing.
That's right.
And so I ended up going from feeding a good life, I started feeding the wrong life. And again, before I knew it, I was, selling drugs, using drugs in the casino, gambling 24/7 on, of course, everybody else's money. But at the same time, it was taking me down. And before I knew it, I was in credit card debt. I was in, spending every dollar I had to feed my habit, having to borrow money and then, buy the drugs to sell the drugs. And it just got worse and worse. And became, of course, a criminal at some point. Started learning, well, okay, if I can't get it the right way, I'll just get it the wrong way. Started stealing it, doing all the bad stuff that you're not supposed to do. Tricking people. Most importantly, hey, go ahead, give me this, and we'll, do this or that. And before you know it, you find yourself in a pattern of a toxic environment that you just can't get out of.
They're kind of shark circling you at that point, aren't they? They wanting their money and you want your money, and everybody wants drugs.
Exactly. Everybody wants the drugs, women, and everything. The whole lifestyle. It does become an actual lifestyle. You become addicted to what is before you, and not what you should be focusing on. So you redirect your focus into the wrong thing.
Mm-hmm.
Is the best way I could put that.
Kind of get like getting sucked down a drain anymore.
Exactly.
Yeah. You come up from this beautiful, beautiful bathtub with roses and everything, and all of a sudden you're down here in the sewer.
Absolutely. And actually, there's something too that I'll tell you later on about that. That's a great point there. So eventually, what ended up happening is I started losing the important things that were actually building a good life and replacing them with the bad things. So instead of working at the casino, it became more working all the evil stuff, the drugs and things. And so I ended up losing my casino job. Ended up just becoming homeless and losing everything that I had. Kept going through this cycle, and I realized something is the most toxic environment is a product of what we allow. So
Mm-hmm.
we allow these things to happen, and we don't realize that it's so easy to save yourself from it. It
Mm-hmm.
really is. You put your faith in God and you trust God to just work in your life and move those mountains to take care of everything. And God is so gracious about that. But our mind is stuck in that toxic mode because
Mm-hmm.
we start feeding what we shouldn't be feeding. You feed the wrong thing, eventually you're not going to starve it. You're going to feed into it, and it's going to power that.
Right.
So I I just learned that the worst thing is that the toxic feeding myself ended up actually bringing me down and down. But I fell and I kept falling. And I mean, we're talking a process of at least 10 years, 15 years. I kept falling, going from where I was to now where I'm, of course, bottoming out into. Eventually, my family turned their backs on me, which was the wisest move. So
Mm-hmm.
if you find yourself asking yourself those kind of questions, do I turn your back on a person you love? Absolutely, you would turn your back because that is how you help them.
Mm-hmm.
You don't help them by enabling them. You don't help them by giving them what they need. You're not helping them by giving them a home or giving them a way to feed their habit.
Yeah.
Essentially, you have to starve their habit by turning your back on them so that they may go through a process with God that leads them no choice but to come to God.
Mm-hmm.
As long as you're blocking God, God's never going to come into the situation because you've done provided everything. They don't need God.
Yeah. Yeah. You've already at this point developed a circle of friends that were helping you in your drug habit and your drug
It,
use and
it,
so forth. So you had an entire circle of um, bad that was helping influence the things you did, and you couldn't see the ones who wanted you free from that.
Exactly.